This is actually for a PhD I'm doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the sort of sustainable long-term development of cycle trails as tourism attractions. So
Good.
I work for a college in Melbourne called Weemanglis.
Yep.
So we're like a tourism, hospitality and events program.
Okay, yeah.
And we were sort of like a polytechnic, but we're now starting to teach degrees. So all of us who were in that area now have to get PhDs to be able to teach in the degree programs.
Yeah.
So I've chosen a good topic to look at anyway.
Oh, reckon. Yeah, no, that's good.
So I've been down at the Otago Rail Trail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is just phenomenally successful.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of people around here have certainly done it. I haven't yet, but kids a little bit older, I reckon, maybe.
Oh, how old are your kids then?
Like 12 and 9, so...
Yeah. Still a bit of a push for them.
Yeah, it is, and they're sort of... They don't mind cycling, but they're not really into it at this point, so... I think you'd need to get them a bit keener, so...
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. So my interest is just all of the... Really, I'm looking at all the different stakeholders that are involved in... or that have been involved in the development of the trails up there.
Mm.
So when did Timberlands really get involved? I'm finding the whole history of the ownership and the management very confusing, to be honest.
It would be. So we should give you a little bit of that then.
Yeah, a bit of history would. Yeah.
So the forest here, Whakarewa River Forest. So there's for the trails in Rotorua. Have you been up on them?
Yeah. I've ridden on those trails.
So you know them. So there's sort of two sides to the forest. You've got this side, which is mostly walking tracks, called Tokarangi Triangle, and that is the rights to that, or the occupier there is the district council.
Yep.
You get up onto the top of the hill, and on the other side is commercial forest, Waka Forest, which is Kainga Timberlands has got the current rights to manage that forest or own the forest, occupy it. So history then, and again I wasn't around for all that, so this is my take on it.
Yeah.
So the forests were established 100 years ago, give or take a couple of years. And for various reasons, but really that was done primarily by the government, partly to look at timber species, and secondly for a lot of, particularly some of it, there was about 70 different species trialled up in between the two forests.
Right.
And sorry, Tokarangi's about 300 hectares, I think, and Waka's about 3,500 hectares, so they're quite different scale. But then also following that, during the Depression, and I'm not sure if any of this was planted in the 60s, there were sort of spurts of planting, mainly because the government had found that the country was running out of easy native wood, so they needed to find an alternative. And it was good foresight. During the Depression, it was partly a work scheme as well. Yeah. So that's the history. So the government had the ownership of the land and the trees up until 1987, where they corporatised.
Oh, this is part of your economics or whatever then.
Yeah, it's all the stuff, and they basically, at that point, they split out so the Forest Service, which managed it then, was really split into two. One was the commercial arm, which was given all the plantations to manage, and the other one's the conservation arm, Department of Conservation, given all the natural forests. So there's a little bit of conservation land on the fringes of the tracks, and some of the tracks go into some of it, link in. And that's Department of Conservation managed, so it's another entity you might not have even heard of in the mix.
Yeah. No, many people don't talk about DOC at all.
No, they don't, but they do have some tracks there, and they're quite key to some of particularly the longer trails there. Right. So, they're quite probably an under recognised in a lot of it. So I'm not sure when the date was, but the government at a future date, which was probably in the 90s, but I can't remember when, decided to sell off the forest assets. So they sold them. They sold these ones to. I should go back a bit. There was a company called Timberlands, which kind of managed the forest estate. It was Timberlands Forest Corporation, changed the name. Those are the government ones. And then they sold the rights to a conglomerate, which was Fletcher Challenge Forests and a Chinese CNIC, which I can't remember what that stood for either. And then they had them for a while as a commercial right. They then, when the government sold them, they created Crown Forest licences. So they were licences to occupy, and then and undertake forestry practice. And I'll get back to that.
Did the government still own the land then?
Yes. So that's probably the next. The next step was that the Fletcher Challenge SNCC entity went bust into receivership, and the receiver then sold the forests and the trees to what ended up being called Timberlands, which was Harvard University, and then Harvard since sold shares in that company. Timberlands still exists, so the shares are now held by Canadian Pension Fund PSP, which have got about 60%, and New Zealand Super that have got about 40%.
Right.
And some of the local iwi who happen to be landowners, 6 of the 8 landowners have got about 2 or 3%.
Right.
So just going back one step, in 2011, I think it was it 2009? So the land's always been owned by the Crown and set aside as part of treaty settlement packages. And so in some of the local iwi bandied together, and they were nicknamed tree lords because that was kind of the deal.
Yeah.
And so they were successful with the treaty claim, and they weren't given the land. It's not quite how it works. They are given the options. They're given money, and then they are able to buy the land freehold under European title rather than under Maunde title, which is slightly different and more difficult to do business on.
Yeah.
So they were able to purchase the land as part of that, and they purchased it at a pretty reasonable price.
Yeah.
But of course, it came fitted with a few things like an occupier. We have a long-term license there, a 30-year license.
Right.
But you get an income with that too.
Yeah. So you pay them a fee to lease that.
That's right.
The trees.
We pay them a license fee, so a rental. And it's a market rental. It's pretty reasonable for both parties, I think. But there were some other encumbrances on the titles and that transfer, and for most of the forest there's a wander at will right and some easements you can drive through, and the wander at will is only on foot. Waka Forest had foot, cycle and horse.
Right, so these were originally then designated by the Crown a long time ago, and so when they then sold that land, those covenants or whatever went with that.
That's right. So they're there. So the land has the license. There are some requirements within the Crown Forest licenses to allow that access as well. So, and I guess if you look at the history, there was already, when those licenses were written up, there was already use of the forest by horses and some mountain biking and walking, and there was some tracks put in there. From what I understand, whether they were permitted to put the tracks in or not has kind of disappeared into the past.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a bit of a rogue element there in terms of the development of some of the trails.
There probably was a bit of that, and certainly over time there was some. But in the end, there was a point when... So Timberlands has been, and we've had a couple of different names, but we've been managing it for about nearly 14 years, I think, now.
Right.
And I've been with the company since then, but I wasn't always with the land side. But I did get into the land side fairly early on, and at the start, when we first started off, there was a fair bit of friction between us and the cycling fraternity about road tracks going and things, because the licence, whilst it allows you to ride a bike in there, doesn't allow anyone to put tracks in.
Yeah.
So you can basically ride all you like, but you can't build a track.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of tracks in there that were there when we took over, and a few more afterwards, and structures and things as well. So the land manager at that time and myself and the cycle club, mountain bike club, basically got together. I think the council might have been involved too. So enough's enough. And there was a fair bit of, particularly the land manager who happened to be a one of the iwi as well, landowners,
Right.
was quite testy about it. But I think there was a few
How long ago was that when that structure started to evolve then?
10 years ago.
Oh, so it's a fair while ago.
Yeah, 10 years. And so we ended up coming out of that quite well with some understanding by both sides of the equation that we've got to accept there's a demand for cycling in there and a right for it, and the other side is that they have to accept it's commercial forest and they can't just come in there and do what they like. So we kind of since then have worked closer and closer to a kind of a happy medium where I think there is a process now if you want to build new tracks. There's also, we get in there, we've made a conscious decision. So we probably 5 years ago, I think, we looked at the harvest profile in there and said, well, we actually need to harvest in here. There's some stands, some minor species we call them, but non-Pinus radiata stands that had passed their use by date. And if you run an optimisation model on it, said harvest them now. Of course, the community didn't like the idea of that because they were pretty close to the trees.
Yeah.
So we made a decision, and again working with the Mountain Bike Club, to sort of stretch out our harvesting plan in there. We made a decision that we would probably want to harvest in that area once a year, just so people know we're in there and they get used to us and we get used to them. But also stretch it out so we're not destroying everything in one fell sweep. And so that I think everyone sort of says, yeah, that's okay, that's a good balance. We also decided we'd like to do smaller size areas, so we chopped a few in half. There's another key one in Douglas Fir around some of the key tracks like the Dipper and that, which are really popular of all ages.
It's a great track.
Yeah, exactly. That we pushed out for 10 years. We thinned it and pushed it out for 10 years. And now we're sort of thinking, well, what do we do? We're 5 years down the track. We better start thinking about that. Is that something we need to reconsider? How do we harvest it then? Or do we do something different? So we're in those thoughts. But I guess it's kind of evolved, and there's a lot of drivers. There's drivers this is our community. Probably half of the company, if not more, bike up in there. So,
that's how I figured.
Yep. There's a fair few of that, and that's great. And then it's also through our environmental certification. So Forest Stewardship Council certification does, I guess, urge us to look at community desires and community good to make sure that we're certainly not ruining things, but actually improving it. But now we've got I think a really good relationship, and I think the test of it is there's a couple of things that say to me it's not everyone's happy because we go in there and harvest and destroy some tracks and it gets in people's way and that. But I think the things that show that it works really well is that we now allow the Mountain Bike Club, or the Trails Trust as it is now, to apply for new tracks in new areas. So there was a reluctance by us to let them go into an area we didn't have any tracks, because of course we didn't want the hassle of people.
Right in there.
But now we're quite comfortable that when it comes to time to harvest there, we have a method to work around that.
Right.
And that method's quite simple, is that we'll do our thing. We'll try to minimise any damage, but that's very hard to do. We will damage, pretty much destroy the tracks. We do try and clear large debris away from where the club, where the trust wants to put reinstate the track, and it allows them also to realign it. I think some of the comments I've heard is that instead of a grade 3 track with some grade 4 and 5 pieces in it, it's actually a grade 3 track right through now, so you can confidently ride. You want to take your kids in on a grade 3, you can do it, and you'll know that it'll be
the same.
Probably more about me riding on it and finding a grade 5.
Me too. The grades are higher here than what they are back in Australia.
So it's consistent. You get a consistent good ride. The tracks have improved, just the structure of the tracks, because they've been able to do that. So and I have heard some really good comments. We miss the trees, but we love the new tracks. So, that's And the trees are regrowing here and there, so there's a kind of a continuum.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get a change of aspect and view because the trees are gone. There's a part of the forest now you can see all the Rotorua from you couldn't before. People are enjoying that for a couple of years until it's gone again. Yeah.
So are they the tracks that you cut or that are destroyed in your milling area? Does the club then have a right to then reinstate those trails, or is that up to the discretion of Timberlands?
I guess it is a discretion, but it's a kind of an open one. We've sort of there's no right there, but there is a discretion that there's an expectation that they can reinstate them and can realign them for a number of reasons. Safety is another one. That's kind of it's just an automatic one. I guess we could one day say no and they'd have to stop. It's not something that's close to our tongues, but in the end, there were some discussions. We're saying, well, actually, if you continue on with doing the wrong thing, we will have to close one option is we'll have to close it all down. I mean, we obviously don't want to do that. We've got over that. That's in the past, in my view. To a situation where there's a bit of self-policing going on, and.
It sounds like the trust has become much more professional.
Yes.
To some degree, or more
the Mountain Bike Club
formalised
was at the end, but the trust is more so.
Right.
And I think, to be fair, it's the key part of that is having one key go-to person there. So if we've got things we need to talk about, I only go to one person.
Right.
If you go to more
Greg
than one,
or something, is it?
Yeah, Greg Brown.
Yeah.
And he's got he's got a pretty good overview of things and understanding of that. Yeah, he's pro biking side of it, but that's fine. But having that one go to is really good, because if you go to two or three, then you'll end up getting cross messages and things. So
so that personal relationship then between the players on that, is it actually a formalised group that meets? Like, do you have a name or something, or like any sort of constitution, or?
So there's it's becoming more formal. So the relationship between us and the Trails Trust is informal. That's the person. This is the person. We'll talk now and then when we need to. Like Greg was in here on the phone earlier this week or late last week about some things. So it's just a matter of picking up the phone or running to each other in the street, or he'll come and see us, or we'll go out there and have a look at something. There is now with the landowners involved and the council, and if you go to things more about events and businesses operating in there, we're quite happy that the council manage that, and that's what they want to do to promote Rotorua business, so events and
do they pay you a concession though to be in there?
No, they pay
they pay the iwi a concession.
They pay the iwi a concession. Or there's a formula worked out where the iwi get a share of. Basically, the council will cover their costs. We'll cover our costs because we can, and we don't. We're not going to ask for too much, but we do think there's a little bit that, and our license doesn't allow us to make any money out of it. We can only cover costs anyway for recreation. So is that
like things like security and things like that? Would you have your own security
we have to have security, particularly around harvesting.
I imagine.
So that's one of the bits that grate us a bit, is that when we go harvesting, we have to put in security to keep people out who can't read signs.
So it costs you to actually harvest your own trees.
It does, and
does it make sense?
And it's quite expensive security. Like I know we spent $40,000 for a fairly big operation on security. It's compensated a bit by it's quite a low cost, high productivity area for forestry. So we cover a bit from that, and I guess it's in the license. It's part of the business that we have to operate there. So we grudgingly accept that. I do get annoyed that there's one or two people that don't even seem to think security matters. So they but they're the real exception. And to be honest, the Trails Trust people would back us if we were able to catch them and trespass them. We've trespassed a couple of people. Partly is we're happy to do that, to send a message that hey, this is a safety thing. You've got to respect that. We know most people out there visiting are really good, but there's a couple we just got to deal with. So the relationship's good. And having the council manage the events and things, because we wouldn't want to do it. It's just
it's a massive event.
is good, and the landowners get a little bit of money out of it, and we get a token appreciation, I guess, which is fine.
So who else is at that table then? Do you meet like on an annual basis or every 6 months?
6 months.
Every 6 months you'll meet.
Yeah, so we meet 6 months to decide on what events, what to permit events and deal with any concessions, and any other matters that might come to hand. Safety is something that we talk about. But that's the three parties. So that's Timberlands, Rotorua Lakes Council, and Central North Island Iwi Collective for the landowners.
Yep.
The mountain bike community, so the Trails Trust or the running clubs or the concessionaries with reasonable sized concessions will be invited as guests, and they'll come in and talk for us, and then we'll shoo them off and get on with things. So, yeah. That works pretty well. I mean, and I think that the iwi are probably the ones that have had to climb the highest hill lately because they've been new to the table and they have a bit of internal politics that they've got to deal with too.
Yeah. I'm finding it very difficult to actually get to talk to anyone.
Oh, okay. Who have you been given?
They gave me two names, and I rang some guy and left a message for him, and he said, I can't remember what his official title, but I think there are 8 different groups.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's only 2 up in the forest, is that right?
That's right. So the 8 different groups are still the current landowners, but there will only be 2. One day they're going to sort out who's got what, and there's only 2 that matter up here. Yeah. So, Alamoti Tapo, was that?
No, isn't it?
So he's the general manager for...
What was his name?
Alamoti Tapo.
Oh, I'm not sure.
So he's the general manager for...
I think they gave me a chairperson's.
Yeah. Skip.
Yes.
Skipworth?
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe you want to talk... Yeah, it'd be good to talk to Alan, but I think Alamoti might be a reasonable one to talk to because he's the general manager. He has to deal with it all. He's the one that comes to the meeting.
Oh, does he? Right.
But Alan Skip... So they'll normally have 1 or 2 from their board, which will be the 2 that represent the iwi here, and Alamoti will be there too. So he's a GM, but he does a lot of administration type stuff for them. So maybe it's more politically correct to go to Alan first, to be fair.
Yeah, well, I rang him, and then he gave me... He said, I'll give your number to someone else.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard back.
So, pretty hard to get on.
I'm not holding my breath either, I don't think.
Yeah. It's would be interesting to get their view for you, but I mean, I think they see opportunity there, to be fair, for them. They'd quite like to have some opportunity that's not just forestry. So at the moment they're collecting a rent from us and a little bit of money out of the events, but I think they feel they might have some other things they could do.
And is there a difference then between the redwoods, it's a Tokarangi block you mentioned, and the rest of the forest? So do you manage the Tokarangi block on behalf of the council? Or
we used to.
Right, so now the council completely manage that independently on their own?
They do, but they have a forestry consultant that they use to do the forestry side of it. Right.
But that's not logged at all, that area there then?
So there's our side is production based, and so we can undertake normal plantation forestry practice there and log it.
Yep.
Their side is for... I'm not sure what it's called, but it'll be for recreation.
Tourism.
But they can harvest, and there's a process they must go through to harvest, particularly if it needs it. So they've recently harvested some area. It was in radiata pine, because redwoods will last you for quite some time. If you walk in the redwoods, there's all sorts of smaller ones coming through. So it'll self-sustain pretty much, whereas radiata pine won't. And so it was getting to an age where getting quite wind vulnerable, so they'd made a decision to harvest it. So I'm not sure what they've replanted it actually. I think it might be radiata again, but if they can do that, I think because I used to manage that when we had it, I'm pretty sure there's the clause in there that said if they did harvest it, all the money has to go back into they can't make a profit. It has to go back into the
running of the Redwoods Information Centre and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So so it's not commercial, but they can harvest if they need to, and
Yeah.
they do. You know, the plantations in particularly radiata, you just can't leave it. It'll all fall over in one big fell sweep if you do that. So,
what sort of age do they have? What sort of age are you looking at there?
I think it was about 70 years old. The stuff they harvested, which is twice our normal rotation. Well, more than twice the normal rotation we would do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be 25, 30 years.
So you cut the timber. Mm-hmm. So the iwi own the land. Do they own the trees as well, or you own the trees?
No, we own the trees.
You own the trees.
Congo Timberlands own the trees. We manage it. We manage the forest on their behalf, even though they own us as well. So
right.
Yeah.
All right. So are you separate companies?
Kaingaroa Timberlands are the tree owners,
yeah.
and Timberlands is the manager.
Yeah.
Kaingaroa Timberlands owns the trees, and they own Timberlands now.
Right.
That's only been for a year.
Yeah.
They bought
and do you mill the trees as well then?
No, so we send them off on trucks mostly to local mills, but
is that sort of like I went round to White Park, is it Red Stag and those?
Yeah, so we send a bit there, or a fair bit there. Yeah. So.
But they don't have anything to do with the forest.
No.
Red Stag.
No, apart from the fact that our neighbours, they've got some effluent they're allowed to dispose of there, and they do sponsor a lot of mountain biking stuff too. They're quite heavily involved in that. Yeah. And their trucks obviously drive through, or trucks delivering to them will drive through some of the forest. And for replanting as well, I guess when we harvest, we hand back the land, and the Crown Forest licence ceases on that patch of land to the landowners, but we have a 5-year rolling replant with them, so we will replant that. If they give us notice, we've still got 5 years of re-establishment ahead of us, and that's a different forestry right, but it still gives us 30 odd years to harvest it, manage and harvest our trees. So we're replanting as well as harvesting.
Okay, so just explain that. Explain that bit again. Right. So when you cut the trees down,
we hand back the particular area we've cut.
The license for that particular area
is cancelled on that particular area. So you sort of piecemeal handing things back.
Yeah.
However, we have a replant agreement with them. So we will go and replant that. It's like a reinvestment, but it's a different agreement. It's a forestry right compared to the forest license. It's actually the same thing. It's just called differently.
Is there still a right to wander into whatever in that forest right?
Yep. Well, the land, it's the right to wander ties to the land as well.
Right. Okay.
I'm just not sure. Once the last trees are harvested, there is something in there, and I'm not sure what that says. That's probably their stuff. But,
right. Because someone the other day mentioned something like this 30 years or 40 years.
We've got 30 years, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then all of that, everything then reverts to the...
That's right.
To the iwi.
Yeah, so over 30 years we'll piecemeal hand back things, and then once we get to the last hectare, all the land's theirs, but we would have had a right for ourselves on there. Just not 100% sure what the rights of the public are in the longer term. I don't know myself.
Yeah.
I probably have heard it, but I just can't remember what it is. Yeah.
And so have you noticed just anecdotally an increase in the number of people who are using the trails? And that
it's every year it seems to get busier and busier.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more promotion of it. You see, often it'll be ranked in lots of publications about great spots or mountain bike resources. And I think the beauty of it, the real attraction is twofold. It's close to town, so it's easy to get. You can walk or bike there if you want, and it's free. And we can't charge for it, and I don't think we will. Even if we could, we would. It's for us, it's a management headache of sorts, but it's also a benefit. It's something that we can say, we're providing something for the community, part of our company. Goodwill. So it's mostly a good thing. But it has its moments.
But as you say, it sounds like it's become far more formalised. In terms of how it's organised and personal relationships between individuals is very important in how that's all managed.
Absolutely. If we didn't have those, it would sink. I think. You just end up with, because you still get people going there and do things they shouldn't, and we end up focusing on that too much. I think.
Yeah.
When 90% of it's really good stuff.
Yeah.
We tend to be able to live together. With a few bumps along. It's like a good marriage. There's always a few bumps to go over.
I don't think we've got anything like it in Australia.
Yeah.
Where you've got a private company would allow this level of access to an area that they're actually managing as a harvesting, as a forest. Plantation forest.
And we're fortunate that our law hasn't overstepped the mark either, because our health and safety laws in particular have basically said as long as for recreation, as long as we do all we can, we're not responsible for silly people. So if we put up reasonable signage and have security there, and someone decides they'll just run on past and get themselves killed, we're legally protected from that.
Right.
And that gives us some comfort. If we weren't, we'd be quite testy about,
I think that might be the big difference back home then. We don't have your, is it ACC? Yeah. We don't have anything like that. We don't have a no-fault sort of insurance scheme back home.
Yeah, so that's quite good.
So I think you'll probably find that maybe companies like yourselves would be very... They just wouldn't do it because there's look at all this risk that's involved.
Exactly. And we get nervous about the risk even so. And unfortunately there has been a couple of people die in the forest doing recreation activities. Yeah. Mountain bikers have come off and killed themselves. But
they have no claim to then sue you as an organisation.
No, and we've sort of looked at that. One of the things is the tracks are maintained. So the trust, that's one thing I didn't say, the trust has a system of maintaining and ranking the tracks. Yeah. And it's an international system. So if you go on a grade 5 or 6, well, you can expect it to be tough. Yeah. You're forewarned, and it's a pretty good system. So I think with ACC, with the legislation that exempts, recreation away from work practices, we're okay. I mean, sometimes you get a little bit sort of nervous when you think about it. Yeah. But we also, I guess, on a recreation point of view, we also issue over 2,000 hunting permits every year, and that's per vehicle. So we've got 2,000 vehicles going into into Kaingaroa Forest, which is 180,000 hectares, hunting. So it's a similar sort of thing. But that's also partly in the Crown Forest Licence, where there are some provisions that we do have to allow. Particularly landowners access for, and it specifically states hunting. But we can still put some restrictions and rules around that to ensure for safety and for operations and things. And again, it's the same thing. We've got a lot. We're quite proactive about this with landowners and worked out a policy that we're also comfortable with, and there's a little bit in for landowners, so if we find one of their people out there without a permit who shouldn't be there, we'll trespass them, but they can go through their iwi and get off at once, which is good. There's a fee for a permit, a $50 fee for the public, but the landowners pay nothing, but they've got to go and register with the iwi, which the iwi like because it brings people back to them. So that, there's... plus we also have a hunting season when it's not fire season, but outside that, iwi hunters can go hunting through a special process, particularly for a funeral or something. If they want to go and get it's mostly pig hunting, they can go and do that. So again, there's some advantage that the landowners get that others don't, and works in the culture too. Well, but there's 120,000 people that are landowners. It's a little bit like, sometimes you have to explain it to some of them that, I'm a shareholder in the warehouse. It doesn't give me the rights to bugger, go in there and do whatever I like and take what I like. Or if you're renting a house and I'm the landlord, it doesn't mean I can come in there and watch a TV with you and eat your popcorn. It's a similar. I mean, that's a good way of sort of, you're getting a rent off us. We're the occupier. We do have some power. We do have some rights here. You have some as well, and we've come to a happy
Yeah, a bit medium. What about going forward then in the future? Do you see it changing much? Is there, like, are there any things that you think will...
I think it'll probably be more and more commercial orientated towards recreation, and that there's and it could be a long time. It might end up a lot less commercial forests. If we're involved, there will need to be some way that we don't. We'll go so far on some things, but if we're going to lose lots of productivity out there, we'll have to figure out how we do that. I've got a task to look at the key values there, like the key mountain bike areas and some of the bits and pieces. I don't know if you know that there's a car park at the bottom of Hill Road where the locals park mostly, and it gets and we're now doing Red Stag's gone 24/7, and a lot of trucks share that with bikes and kids and things, and we're probably going to have to close it if we can't find a safe solution. So that's a bit of a there's a few places there we've just got to iron things out, but I think what we want to do is have a bit of an overview of it and say what are the key values out there, how are we going to work it so that we don't mess this place up. That's probably the medium term thing. The longer term, who knows, it could end up
So you wouldn't think of developing any sort of commercial...
We can't.
In that, right, okay.
We can't. But definitely the landlords have that on their mind and have talked about some things with us. How would this go? And we say, well, in the end, it'll get in the way of our forestry. So somehow we have to... We're not telling you no, but we're telling you that these are the things we need to resolve first. So, So, look, I think as long as we have the right people involved and I think with the way the world expects businesses, in particular forestry, to behave, it won't get worse. It'll probably get better. We
good global citizens now.
Yeah, and look at it. Look who our investors are. The landowners that are small, and they may well get more and more investment in there. The government superannuation fund. Well, if things start going wrong, the public goes straight to them.
Yeah, that's right.
They've got fingers into the government and a Canadian super fund, so they've all got pretty high ethics. Our one, as soon as someone finds out that they're investing in something that makes weapons, they got a whole lot of bloody grief about it. So they're pretty sensitive to those sort of things.
Yeah, fair enough. It's their profit as well, isn't it? Really?
Well, that's right. Mum and dad.
Ultimately, in the end.
Yeah.
People putting their money in there.
We don't want to be involved with people making cluster bombs and things.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's interesting because that's really clarified it. Because I found the whole structure so confusing.
Yeah.
When I was talking to people, I'm like, who owns it? Do they cut it? Do they own the trees? They own the land? It's like, oh my God, what's going on?
It is quite convoluted, and there's been some changes over time, but
and the fact that you've been involved for a long time though is probably. And Greg, by the sounds of things, has been in there for a long time.
Yeah.
So, and is it Julianne?
Julianne's been there, and she actually used to work for us. And when we had Tokarangi, she managed the visitor centre.
Okay.
And when we passed it back to the council, we passed her with it as well.
Oh, okay.
And we're hoping they'd take her because she's really good.
Yeah.
And again, she knows it and she understands it, and she's got spread her wings further within the council as well as far as her responsibilities with recreation.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see her tomorrow.
Yeah, well, she's good. She's always been quite a driver behind the public good side of it. So
and any others then? Any other individuals?
We talked about iwi. So you're trying there. Who else?
So Doc aren't involved at all. They don't come to any of those meetings, or
no. They're more on the periphery.
Which is different down in Otago because Doc's the manager of that land that the trail runs over.
Yeah, the only thing that Doc got is there is some. If you have a look at the, it's probably easier on this. If you just see this is the forest here. Doc have got this area here.
Right.
So that's the Blue Lake there. So pretty much all the face of natural forest you can see that butts up from there is under theirs. So they're not big.
Is this wetland?
We're all the red stuff.
Wow.
So that's the biggest. That was once the biggest man-made forest, I think on the southern hemisphere, it may have even been in the world.
That is enormous.
It's 100 and... So all of this is about 100 and from about here down about 130,000, but everything all up's about 190,000 hectares stock.
So really, the fucker is only really just when you're looking at it like this, it's like it's only a wee bit of really what you got, isn't it?
And actually, one of the things I think that's important for you too is that we're quite happy for things to happen here, recreation. But if you start wanting to come in here, that's sacred country. This is New Zealand's breadbasket with forestry. This is the primo forestry. It's good land, it's flat, it's close to markets, it's big, so you've got scale there. It's low cost because a lot of things it really hums. It's the crown jewels.
Are these all your copying
compartments?
Right.
Yeah, so they're all divided into compartments. There's over 1,000 of them around the place.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what have you predominantly got in there then?
It's radiated pine. It's
all pine.
95%. And we tinker with some other species.
So no native species?
No, well, there's native remnants, not a whole lot, but there's native remnants, and we manage those for conservation, not for production.
And is that because they're too slow growing?
No, it's because, it is, but also we've had agreements with the environment groups to leave them alone, not convert them, and we're a plantation company, and our certification requires us to manage a certain area of conservation, so we use it for that.
Wow.
And it's plantations have really worked here. That it's 99.9% of our harvest from New Zealand is from plantations, and less than it's only 0.1% is from natural forest.
They're still having those battles back home.
Yes, well, our manager, new chief executive, was the chief executive of Vic Forest. So
okay.
Yeah, he's just started. So he's had quite a lot of experience with that.
Yeah. Well, I know. Well, because I'm from Victoria, and I'm pretty sure that they're right in the midst now of trying to work out some sort of future for Vic Forest and what it's going to look like, and whether the government can guarantee a certain amount of logs and a whole range of things.
Oh, it's a real fight between the
conservationists
and workers and conservation foresters. And I think, I don't know a lot about it, but I actually think from a forestry point of view on a world scale, it's world class what they do. Same, New Zealand used to have that too, but it wasn't acceptable even at that. It was both, really here. The Labour Party, when they last came to government, it was pretty much what got them in, is that they promised to stop the native forest logging, government native forest logging, and this was one in Auckland about something on the remote bottom of the west coast, but it's politics and
well, the same happened in Tassie, but that was 30 years ago now.
Yeah, well,
but even then,
Tassie's still a battleground.
Yeah, it's coming again now. So we just haven't found that that compromise between native forests and plantation forests.
Yeah. And I don't think you'll ever, when you start making up native forests, I think that you'll never get everyone on the same page. Particularly in the Western world. I deal with a few of them through our international certification and
just the forest stewardship.
So I represent New Zealand industry on that, and we just think the lucky stars that we've got it so bloody easy compared to them. And we still have our battles with the environment groups, but we can all sit around the same table and have quite a friendly battle. It's quite entertaining and fun. But we'll still achieve stuff as well. So
it gets nasty overseas.
Yeah, well, it does get nasty,
People
and it's
have
not
such rigid views that they can't find any compromise.
And we've got
as soon as you get to that,
we've got those rigid views, but we've actually got to a place where we can still talk about them. And
it's all about negotiation to a large extent.
Well, it's just a lot of good work done by people who've. We've got this thing called the Forest Accord 1991. The plantation companies signed up. We will not convert natural forest to plantation because we were in a space we could do that. But won so many points. We have an accord meeting with environment groups. We've been having it for 25 years. So it's the same old warriors that turn up.
So. You guys are way ahead of us in so many areas. Same with the tourism. There's nothing like this back home.
Yeah, well, I know they set up the international flights from Sydney exactly for that. They didn't really work, but
I heard that.
A lot of Aussies do come and do this, and there's other biking areas. And,
I met a group out there, a whole group of them, blokes out there, from Australia. Yeah, it's crazy.
It is good. It's such a good spot to come and do lots of.
This print, would you have that available on your website or something? It's only for internal use.
Don't have that print because it is internal. We just changed the website. Maybe it'll be up now. We'll have some maps on it of our estate. So it'll have this map on it.
Okay.
And another map which just is more.
And they're freely available?
Yeah.
To download?
So, it's happening
not
today.
Not the big print, but yeah.
No, you'll be able to download that as a PDF.
Okay. Great.
But there's another one that's more. This is an emergency map, but it's also useful to navigate on. But there will be another one that comes up with.
So where's the forest
it's
here?
not on this one. It's on the other one.
Okay. All right. All right.
I might.
I can find it, Michael.
I've got your email there. If I remember, I can flick. It's going up today, hopefully. But there's another map that actually just gives you where our forests are.
Yep.
And it will have Waka Forest on it. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, look, thanks heaps for that.
Oh, that's all right.
I really appreciate it. It's